I had a radar hit, and it was swinging. It looked like 30 knots. There was something there. It looked like it didn't look like a bird. It looked like, no kidding, a rock to me. I kid you negative. I have no idea what it was, but basically just heads up, try to stay away from 17,000, keep your nugget on swivel. I have no idea what it was. I'm going to use my radar to see if I can pick this object up again. I picked it up twice. The first time I picked it up, my radar broke lock, so I thought it was just some kind of bad lock or potential chaff. And I'm going to turn back towards the north just a little bit.
Fuel pickup trail.
Back, I'm going to start coming back towards the west. I think it was 004 for about 20. I've got it again. It's at 17.7. 3 miles off my nose at 17.7. I'm flying that way now. I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to get below 300 knots, but back towards you. Dude, I can't tell. Some small, very small black object. I had it at 17.7. It just flew right over me.
Confirm the object appears stationary.
Well, I couldn't tell because it was, I think it's about 30.
You're 80 knots.
Yeah, my radar showed between 30 and 60, so I have no idea what it's actually doing. But it went from 17 the first time I saw it to 17.7, so it's not falling. I don't think it was a bird.
Better locking in with auto gun.
Well, now we're going to turn our attention toward the skies, specifically to some strange lights that some of your neighbors out near the Eagle Ford Shale oil fields say they've seen. Reporter David Sears with our ABC affiliate in San Antonio takes a closer look.
You've got 3 distinct lights.
Pictures from oil rig security cameras.
It's hovering above us.
Videos from oil rig workers. And eyewitness accounts from ranchers.
Somewhere out there, there's something.
Are we alone? It seems like UFO sightings are occurring more frequently over the Eagle Ford Shale. Some can be explained.
It looked to the world like some sort of a craft sitting there.
But after Mutual UFO Network investigators got a closer look,
they have determined that it's not a craft at all.
Turned out it was some sort of vehicle. But then some sightings are unexplained.
About 10% of them, those are the ones that'll make your eyes roll round and round in your head, and we can't figure it out.
They started blinking, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It was like bing, 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 bing.
Penny Farrell and her husband Jerry saw those lights just above the horizon from the back porch of their South Texas ranch last November. No pictures, just memories.
All at once, they went back over here to this tree, but they were a little higher.
After several minutes of back and forth and blinking, they took off. And
when it shot up into the heavens, it was just like a blink of an eye, and boom, it was up there.
We scanned the big South Texas star-filled sky. We didn't see any flashing or darting lights, but just because we didn't see it tonight doesn't necessarily mean it's not out there.
If you were here and saw it like we saw it, sat here and marveled over what was happening up there in the sky, then you'd say, that's a UFO.
Along the Eagle Ford Shale in South Texas, David Sears, KSAT 12 News.
You decide.
Hi everybody, today is February 9th, 2013. U.S. military veterans asked to speak about UFO sightings over nuclear sites. Noted UFO researcher Robert Haskins is asking U.S. military veterans to contact him regarding their UFO-related experience at nuclear missile sites, weapons storage areas, and atomic thermal nuclear bomb test sites during the Cold War era and beyond. On September 27, 2010, Haskins co-sponsored the UFOs and Nuke press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., which CNN streamed live. The full-length video of the event may be viewed at, and they give you a link here. During the press conference, 7 U.S. Air Force veterans discussed UFO incursions at ICBM sites at Malmstrom's Air Force Base in Montana, F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming, and Walker Air Force Base, New Mexico, as well as the weapons storage area at RAF Bentwater, England. The incident at Maelstrom on March 24, 1967 involves several missiles inexplicably malfunctioning moments after security personnel reported observing a glowing disc-shaped craft hovering over the Oscar Flight Launch Control facility. Other UFO sightings by civilians near the facility have been reported as recently as September 2012. One time he was at the college in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and this is all he's basically interested in is UFO encounters at nuclear sites. He's not interested in hearing about other people's experiences of UFOs unless they're related to nuclear weapons. Similar incidents have occurred at various ICBM's bases over the years, according to other veterans interviewed by Hastings. UFOs also reportedly hovered over nuclear bomb storage areas and B-52 bomber alert pads. Declassified documents relating to some of these incidents may be read at, and they give another link here. Currently, Hastings is chiefly interested in sightings occurring during the October 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, as well as those that took place over the past decade. However, he's also seeking information relating to any UFO sighting involving nuclear weapons. Hastings hopes to publish as many reports as possible once they have been vetted, but requests for confidentiality will be honored. Hastings notes that Soviet Army veterans have revealed cases of UFO activity at nuclear weapons sites in the former USSR. Those events have been confirmed by KGB or Ministry of Defense documents, including one occurring on October 4, 1982, during which nuclear missiles temporarily activated just as a disc-shaped craft hovered above them. Elsewhere, on July 28 and 29, 1989, another UFO hovered over a Soviet nuclear missile warhead depot and directed laser-like beams into it. Hastings believes that the American people and citizens of all nations deserve to know the facts regarding the reality of UFOs and the ongoing situation involving our nuclear weapons. Military veteran testimony will greatly contribute to this objective. He may be contacted at ufohastingsaol.com. But like I said, he's only interested in UFOs at nuclear sites. Don't waste your time in sharing other information about other UFO sightings, because he's just not interested in those. Alright, bookmark my site. I'll keep everyone up to date. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless y'all. Bye.
Astronomers have long assumed they'd have to look far and wide and deep into our galaxy before they found a single Earth-like planet. But now, it looks like there may be many, quite nearby, perhaps as close as 13 light-years, virtually in our own cosmic backyard. Working with data from NASA's Kepler mission, scientists at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics have calculated that 6 in every 100 red dwarf stars should have at least one Earth-sized world orbiting in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water can exist. Red dwarfs are the most common type of star. They are much cooler, 1,000 times dimmer, and generally only about 1/3 the size of our Sun. So if you look up at night, your unaided eye won't see a single one. For every star you can see, there are at least 3 red dwarfs which you can't. But the Kepler telescope and other research instruments easily can. It's almost as if the universe wants us to discover these worlds. Earth-sized planets are much larger, relative to the dwarfs they orbit, than they would be to Sun-like stars. So they produce a much stronger light curve, in other words a dip in brightness, for Kepler to more easily notice. And even better, because red dwarfs are cooler than our Sun, the Goldilocks zone, where temperatures are just right for life, is much closer into these stars. Which means 1 year on these speculative planets is much shorter than our year, which means it takes Kepler much less time to see multiple passes of these planets and thus confirm their existence. But perhaps most intriguing, red dwarfs have lifespans much longer than our Sun. So scientists speculate that we might come across life on such planets around red dwarfs that is much older than life as we know it on Earth. For Space.com, I'm Dave Brody.
Space.com.
Hi everybody, today is February 9th, 2013. Large black crescent-shaped UFO near mall. A Columbus, Ohio witness reported watching a large black crescent-shaped object with white-gray squares underneath, hovering about 100 feet over a nearby shopping mall about 10:38 p.m. on February 6th, according to testimony from a Mutual UFO Network MUFON Witnesses Reporting Database. The witness had just left work and was at a bus stop when the object was first seen. The object was about 80 feet across and 20 feet wide in the center, the witness stated. All of the measurements are based on comparison to the part of the building that it flew over, the building being about 20 feet high at that point. The object emitted a sound. The only sound I heard was a ultra-pitch hum that faded as the object passed over flying due north. The witness described the object. The object itself was flat, dark color, slightly lighter than the sky behind it. There were several light gray squares underneath, but no lights. The object moved away and out of sight. It traveled a distance of approximately 1 mile before I could no longer see it, which took about 20 to 30 seconds. The witness first thought the object was a giant boomerang. When I first noticed it, I thought it looked like a giant boomerang-shaped ship. I felt only slightly confused, curious. I lost sight of the object because its dark color made it blend in with the sky after passing over a well-lit parking lot of the shopping center. No images or video was submitted to MUFON Report, which was filed on February 7, 2013. The witness did submit one illustration that depicted what was seen. Columbus is the capital and largest city in Ohio. Population 787,033. Ohio is a current UFO Alert 4 rating, with a higher than average number of UFO sightings nationally. Ohio has 23 reports in January of 2012. The 6th highest reporting state, while California had 75 reports, the highest reporting state in the nation. And it says you can read more details about other recently reported cases at the UFO Examiner homepage. Alright, bookmark my site. I'll keep everyone up to date. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless y'all. Bye.
Hey folks, I'm Will. This is Planet Under Attack, and this Baltic Sea UFO has recently shown back up in the news. I want to put some thoughts together on this. It was discovered sometime spring, early summer 2011. It showed up on major media in August. Fox News and CNN run it, and since it has come back to life because apparently the owner of this company, or the owners of the company, have secured funds to go down and take a look at this very curious object, which bears an incredible resemblance to the famous Millennium Falcon of Star Wars fame. It's very disc-shaped. Apparently there is another disc somewhere close to it. I've not been able to locate anything like that, but I've read in a couple different spots that there are actually 2 discs. This one's about the size of a 747, and like I said, it looks exactly like this one. Uncanny. But here in the Baltic Sea, you can see Sweden, you see Denmark, you see Germany. There was actually a UFO battle in Nuremberg, Germany, 500 years ago, in which dozens, if not hundreds, of craft were in the sky shooting each other, destroying each other. So possibly something limped out toward the sea and hit the water, and there it is. That's one slim possibility. The object itself has a drag mark, and I'll show you this later, associated with it, that looks like it, in some form, has actually moved quite a distance across the bottom of the sea. It's one of the more staggering facts about it. Now, again, referring to this area, back in 1952, Operation Mainbrace took place. This is a joint exercise between American and British Navy vessels. And this was an exercise that was pockmarked with multiple UFO sightings, all built by these military witnesses. They observed ships going in and out of the ocean, There was a photographer on hand who was actually able to capture some of these discs on film. At one point, supposedly, a UFO came out of the water very close to one of the ships, clipped it, damaged it, and witnesses say that that UFO was 1/4 of a mile wide, an immense craft. And it's even possible that when Dwight D. Eisenhower was out there observing, he saw one too. So here is the drag mark that we're looking at. There's not a whole lot of images of this thing available that are different. I'm going to show you one a little bit later that I found. But you can see, imagine that's the size of a 747 there. This long drag mark at the bottom of the seabed, where it appears this thing cruised on in and crashed. It's above expectation to think that maybe if this is a UFO, there would be pilots on board. But this certainly could be something that was shot down, or something that was just abandoned. Another aspect of this is the Nazis. They are well known for having attempted an aggressive UFO program during World War II, supposedly by technology given them by the alien grays. Could that be a Nazi UFO at the bottom of the ocean? Possibly. Could be. This is an image I found off of Tumblr, and it's associated with the story, but I don't have any information as to how it originated, what it is. It's like a scanned image or a sonar image, maybe. But eventually, sometime soon, this is going to be back in the news, because they are going to be sending down either a robotic craft or some deep-sea divers to actually take a look at exactly what this object is. I'm thinking that if this had the possibility to be an actual crashed UFO at the bottom of the ocean, some of the G20 governments might have gotten together and cordoned this area of the Baltic Sea off. But what would be really cool is if when they went down to take a look at this object in the spring, it was in fact gone. You guys have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diane, and today is February 16th, 2013. Here are your news updates for today. We're going to have a mega show. There's not going to be a lot of news so far on Saturdays when I've been checking it out. So, I have constructed a mega show of Dr. Deagle Nutrimedical report and everything that talked basically about what happened with the meteorite and DA 142012 and everything that you can, and coast to coast I'm putting on there. And so you got a mega show tonight, since there won't be a lot of news. So I'll do this early and then I'm going to upload it. It's going to take a while. So it is the afternoon of Saturday, and here are your updates for today. Something coming in out of U.S., Canada. Okay, let's see. Today, NBC meteor fireball reported over San Francisco Bay Area, clearly visible on Doppler radar. AP, alarm about radioactive leak at the most contaminated site in U.S. We've got a problem. This is big. That's the Hanford facility in Washington, and there's a big problem there. They have 117 nuclear waste tanks, and one of them's 177 nuclear waste tanks. And one is losing the water level. They call that the most contaminated area. They're worried about, in the U.S., they're worried also about the Columbia Colombian River, and that plutonium's going to get into it. Check that one out, huh? Also on the E&E News update, divers look for a breach on the seafloor near Trouble Well in Gulf of Mexico. Alrighty then. Here we go. Let me look again under U.S. Let me look under Japan Fukushima now. That was the U.S.-Canada one. They know all over 5 million becquerels per square, per meter square of cesium-137 in Fukushima City. Yesterday, a couple days ago, report now over 44% of Fukushima children have thyroid abnormalities in latest tests. So heads up. Alright, everybody heads up on this. You know, look where the jet stream goes. Watch where the currents go. Alrighty then. Let's move over to, let me see here. I think there's just one more article. I know the watchers, I couldn't get on that. They're updating it or something. See, it's the second time I'm doing the show, but this is going to be a mega show, so hang in there. Okay. The extinction protocol. There's just one article on. There's not a lot of news on Saturdays. It's too bad because the last time Max was over there rolling all over the place, and I had filmed him. So since that isn't going to show up now, because now he's quiet. He had just ate and he was on his back and he was making all kinds of noises and talking and wiggling around. So maybe the next time I'll try to catch that. Get back, cat. NASA's get back. You're gonna ruin my computer. Go, go. NASA says small asteroid exploded over Russia. Event took everyone by surprise. So they're calling it a small asteroid now, which I find very interesting. Also, a deep 6.2 magnitude earthquake rattles the Philippines. And again, meteor fireballs streak across skies over Cuba and San Francisco. Oh, now I'm going to have to let him in his special bedroom there. Spoiled boy. Hold on. Alrighty then. Alright. It's one day down, just about. You still got the rest of the day, of the weekend. One more to go. Alright, take care. I'll see you on the flip side. Stay tuned. This is a giant show. Putting a lot of footage and UFO footage on there too. UFO update. Alright. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow on the flip side. Be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This is J.R. Moore and Morrison substituting for Dr. Bill Deagle here on the Nutrimedical Report on Friday, the 15th day of February, year of our Lord, 2013. Good afternoon, Ann.
Good afternoon, John, and belated happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you. Same to you, my dear. We have some comments to talk about, I believe, don't we?
Yeah, let's talk about first this meteor that came in this
yeah, that kind of, we talked about that this morning on my show, and I'm still, I cannot get over the fact that, and it is a fact apparently, that this event happened 12 hours before we had any notice on our side of the planet, which I found rather extraordinary.
I think that's extraordinary too. Now, it was coming in very fast, and it was coming in through the dark, but I'm sure that the radar, at least the military radar, must have caught it as it came in, but apparently there were no alerts that were sent out anyplace. And there was a shock wave, and it knocked down walls, and it blew out windows, and people who rushed to the windows to see were hurt by the flying glass. Apparently there have been, let's see, it shattered about 18 to 32 miles high, so that's way above the jet stream.
Right.
And they say it was traveling at 33,000 miles per hour, and the number of people injured has risen to 1,000.
Do we have any idea of fatalities?
They're not saying. They do say there were a number of children, but they're not saying exactly how many. There were three meteor craters, and they show two of them landed in a big reservoir, and they showed the ice was just a perfect circle.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to go down and examine those meteor craters, but one of them built a crater on land, so there were at least three pieces big enough to make meteor craters, and they say it was 10 tons. And I don't think you're going to stop a 10-ton rock traveling at 33,000 miles per hour with a missile unless it's a nuclear warhead.
Right. It would take a lot of force to do that. I don't know how much power these space-based laser weapons have or what they're really capable of, so it's not really possible for me to even comment on that. Well, today was certainly a moment in history that when we woke up, actually the event was yesterday. We woke up this morning finding out about it, and with 1,000 people being injured, almost without a doubt there had to be some fatalities.
I would guess so. It happened at 9:20 in the morning, and that was about 12. It was about 180 degrees. It was on the opposite side of the earth from where we live.
Right.
So that was about 9:20 p.m. that it happened, and I watched the news up until 10 p.m. and there was nothing on the news about it. It was just astonishing that apparently it went onto YouTube, and eventually the mainstream news caught wind of it and started publishing pictures. I suppose as they took them off of YouTube or got them directly from people who were there.
Right.
It was an astonishing thing to see.
It was.
I think we can expect more. Now they're saying this is a 1 in 10-year event, but we have 3 comets coming into the solar system this year, and that is astonishing. The last time we saw a comet was Halley's Comet, and wasn't that in 87 or something?
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while. And we have 3 comets coming into the solar system, and they're bound to bring a debris field. And I'm not sure that this meteor wasn't part of the debris field from the asteroid DA-14 that passed by. At least that's what they're saying, is that it passed by.
Right.
And I would like to see the numbers on the altitude before I...
That would have been, what, about 3 hours ago, give or take a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this first comet that will be coming through our solar system, it's L4, Lima 4 in March, and it's called Pan-STARRS, based on the observing equipment?
Exactly. It was discovered by the Pan-STARRS equipment. That's an orbiting satellite, and its designation is C-2011 L4, and it's going to cross the orbit of Mercury, and that means that it's going, Mercury is the first planet out from the sun. So Mercury rotates once as it rotates around the sun. So one side of Mercury is always facing the sun, and the other side is always facing the dark.
Really?
And yeah, this is very strange.
Yeah, you're right. I've heard that. I haven't thought about it in a while. Yeah.
So this L4 is coming in inside that orbit of Mercury. So it's going to be very, very close to the sun. And because it's going to be close to the sun, where you want to be looking for it is in the sunset skies of early March. And that's when it passes closest to the sun and Earth. And so I'm looking at the orbit diagram that anybody can get up on the JPL website. You can jump to it from spaceweather.com. And it doesn't look to me, now it looks to me like it's going to pass on the opposite side of the sun than Earth. And that's on March 12th. And that's when it will be closest to the sun, and it will be at 0.3 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the distance between the Earth and the sun.
Okay.
So the Earth's distance is going to be more than an astronomical unit because it's passing on the other side of the sun. Now, it's possible that as this comet, this Pan-STARRS L4, comes into the solar system, it's going to, okay, you know how our solar system is kind of like a pancake?
Right, exactly.
Well, this comet is coming in like a fork would. if you stick your fork in your pancake, so it's not coming in on the plane of the solar system.
Okay.
So it's not going to pass. It's not going to pass close enough to the orbits to leave a debris field. And it says that it's going to brighten on March 10th, and it could emerge glowing as brightly as the third magnified star, similar to the stars from the Big Dipper. However, this is a very strange comet. It's never been to the inner solar system before. It's coming in from what's called the Oort cloud. Now, the Oort cloud is it's an imaginary place.
Okay.
We're not sure where the Oort cloud is.
We are. Okay.
Somebody said that, well, we've got these meteors that come in, these comets that come in, and they're on a hyperbolic path, and they must come from someplace. Therefore, wherever they're coming from, we're going to call that the Oort cloud.
Oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very scientific, Ann.
Well, it's a hypothesis.
Yeah, obviously.
And until they disprove it, it remains the hypothesis that they use, or until somebody makes another hypothesis.
Uh-huh.
So it's never been warmed by the sun. In fact, it's probably as cold as anything could be in outer space, and it could just bake out near the sun and disappear, or it could brighten, and then we'll see it right after sunset.
Okay, hold that thought. We got a break. Everybody stay tuned. And off the air, the three of us were talking about how unusual, at least in my opinion, and bizarre, something this major, a major natural catastrophe, would go unreported in major Western news media for almost half a day.
Well, with the information coming out right now that the Washington Times, I think it's the Washington Post and the New York Times, are under a special vetting process by the CIA. It doesn't surprise me because the United States is under a very tight leash when it comes to the mainstream media. Whatever they want to tell you is what they tell you, and you have to depend on the international media in order to get the facts straight, because it's not even balanced, it's not even fair. And I'm not saying that Fox News is not balanced and fair, it's not. But anyway, we know that this is an incredible event that immediately went international. It's an international event of great magnitude, $30 million in damage. Thousands of windows shattered by the shockwave of this meteorite that exploded in the upper atmosphere and the stratosphere, and then just went flying down over the Ural Mountains on the border with Kazakhstan. So yeah, it's a very big deal what happened. Because they're at very cold temperatures right now, sub-zero temperatures, -6 centigrades, and the people don't have any windows. How are they going to heat up? And another thing that's very important, an after effect of this meteor shower that hit our planet, we have a report out of Italian mainstream media of a celestial body exploding over Cuban airspace this morning. Quote, residents of a locality in the central region of Cuba say they had seen an object that fell from the sky and exploded with a great noise, which shook the houses of the region. It is learned from testimonies collected by local television in Cuba. The report released this morning by Rodas agency over there in Cuba is about a town in the province of Cienfuegos. This was the witnesses described a very bright light that has come to have a large size comparable to that of a bus before exploding in the sky. So I believe this is an after effect of what happened in Russian airspace, because it was on the northern hemisphere.
Right. Well, very likely these may be companion objects that were more or less traveling together through space. Wouldn't you agree, Ann?
You can talk about coincidence, but you also have to talk about the fact that, one thing causes another, and it's just, the chances of a meteor falling through the sky and hitting the ground are what? Well, they're astronomical. And the chances of an asteroid coming in close enough to the Earth underneath the satellites, the communication satellites, are astronomical. And for the two events to happen together, I think that there's, I think either the asteroid bent the path of the meteor. The meteor was much smaller than the asteroid, so the gravitational force would have been bigger. It would have been pulled along with the asteroid and could have just slingshotted into the atmosphere. I don't think we're through. I think that there are probably other meteors that are traveling with this asteroid. And I think we're going to be going through debris fields from the comets. We have 3 comets that are coming into the solar system this year.
Well, it's going to be an interesting year, and it already is. It has been so far. And we've got some more comets to talk about, I believe, don't we?
Yes, I wanted to talk about so we have this one that's coming in on early March that we should be able to see unless it falls into the sun. And then we have one that's coming, and the only reason it really wouldn't fall in the sun, it just might burn out because it's going from very cold to the sun temperature, which is very hot. Now, we have one coming in April 18th, and that's called Lemon. And it's a green comet. It's something that we know about. It follows the hyperbolic path, not a hyperbolic path, a parabolic path. And the reason that it puts on, right now, it's putting on a great show down in the southern hemisphere. In other words, it's coming in from the South Pole, and the reason it grows green, the color is green, is because the nucleus contains cyanogen, which is a poisonous gas found in many comets, and diatomic carbon. And both substances glow green when illuminated by sunlight in the near vacuum of space. So it was first seen on last March 23rd, 2012. To finish talking about Lemon, and now will be the close approach to the sun will be close to the orbit of Venus, and Earth is going to be on the other side of the sun. So we won't. It'll be late March when it approaches the sun, and then we'll first get a good look from the northern hemisphere in early April, and I have down here April 18th. That's when it hits the sun. Until then, it's just for astronomers in the southern hemisphere. Then the third comet that we know is coming into the solar system is ISON, I-S-O-N. And for those that want to draw the orbit diagram, it's 2012 space S1. And it's going to put on an unforgettable display. Now, the problem is with ISON is it's going to approach the sun. It's going to fly only 745,000 miles through the sun's outer atmosphere. And that's like this close approach with the asteroid that we had today. This comet is going to brush the sun, and they say that it could emerge glowing as brightly as the moon, visible near the sun in the blue daylight sky. So that means we might have 2 suns in the sky starting, right after November 28th and through December.
Right.
So this is, because it's such a tight orbit, it's coming into the solar system inside the orbit of Mercury. But of course, if it's less than 1 million miles from the sun, it's so close to the sun, isn't it going to disturb the orbit of Mercury? It looks like that is the one that might, though, create a flare, because it will have kinetic energy associated with it, and the sun might send out a flare in its direction, and that flare could impact Earth and Venus. So towards the end of this year, things could be very dicey as far as solar flares or a kill shot from the sun to the Earth.
Well, as we said earlier, it's going to be a very interesting year, isn't it?
It truly is, and I think we're very lucky to be living in an age and time when this is happening. I have never, the last comet I remember was in '87, and here we're having 3 in 1 year.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And there could be more, couldn't there?
And there could be more.
We got another break, guys. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be back after the break with the Nutrimedical Report. This is J.R. Moore and Ann Morrison and Alexander Bachman substituting for Dr. Bill Deagle here on Nutrimedical Report on Friday, the 15th of February. And did we exhaust the list of comets yet?
Yeah, that was the list of comets. I did want to mention an earthquake, and it's had numerous aftershocks. Now, I've explained to you how the North American tectonic plate actually holds Japan and the Kamchatka Peninsula. In other words, the Mongolia, the highest point that before you get to the Arctic Circle, that is the boundary of where the plate tectonics are between the North American tectonic plate and the Eurasian tectonic plate. And there have been a series. There was a 6.6, and there's been a 4.8, and there's been other earthquakes on that fault line in Russia. And that is very strange, because it usually, it's a, what do you call it? It's on a continent. And it's in the Russian continent, and it's up close to the Arctic Circle. So one is close to the Arctic Circle, 2, it's on land, it's not out in the ocean, and 3, 6.6 is a good-sized earthquake. So now that would be where the North American plate would be pushing under the Eurasian plate. And we've got at least 3 or 4 earthquakes up there. We've had the magnitude 6.6, and then we've had 3 or 4 aftershocks.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, the earthquakes just keep coming more frequently, more severe, don't they, Ann?
They do, and we can expect, now people said the asteroid didn't create any earthquake, and I tend to believe them, but at the same time, we are having a series of earthquakes that are along this tectonic plate boundary, which we haven't seen before. This is at 67 degrees north. So, we only go to 90 degrees north. So if we say it's 70, if we round up to 70, we're only 20 degrees away from the North Pole.
Right.
Now, it was rather deep. It was 83 miles deep. No, I'm sorry. It was only 6 miles deep. And I suspect if there had been anybody living around there, there might have been damage. Of course, there's nothing around there.
Right. Well, let's do a little segue here. And Alexander, I want to ask you if is there any other matters of importance you're paying attention to?
Yeah, we have serious matters. We have a new form of lions.
That meteorite over Russia. Who better than Richard C. Hoagland, and he is next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. We were getting reports last night that something strange was happening over Siberia in Russia, and sure enough, a meteor shattered the area near the Ural Mountains, a small town, 1,200 people injured, primarily from shattered glass. Richard C. Hoagland, our science advisor and head of the EnterpriseMission.com, will stay with us this hour as we talk about this story. Richard, just an incredible story, especially seeing it on video.
Well, there's so many videos. I was watching tonight some of our correspondents on CNN and MSNBC, and they were talking about the unusual aspect that Russian drivers apparently have webcams on their dashboards as a regular, ordinary feature of driving. So all the people going to work in this little small town about 1,000 miles east of Moscow early yesterday morning caught this thing on video and recorded it from, a zillion different angles.
Yeah, that's how they did it. I was wondering that because for a while I'm saying, how could these people all have their smartphone cameras turned onto an area that had nothing going on at the time?
Well, again, the explanation is there are apparently so many accidents on the choked roads of Russia that the insurance companies, remember, Russia now is capitalist like we are, the insurance companies are refusing to pay claims unless the driver can prove he or she was not at fault.
Huh.
So what have they done?
That's right.
They've equipped their cars with these dash cams like the police have over here, and you've got all these amazing things from thousands upon thousands of just ordinary folks. I mean, science democratized up the wazoo, and we've got this stunning set of videos from every conceivable angle during drive time rush hour in Russia.
Now, Richard, tell us the difference between a meteor and an asteroid.
Okay. A meteorite is the thing you find on the ground. The little piece of
whatever it was. Okay.
Yeah. A meteor is the bright object in the sky that you see that if it reaches the ground becomes a meteorite. So the meteor is a description of the optical phenomenon. And the size of an object that is a meteor can be anything from a grain of sand, which is what most meteors are when you look up at the sky and see a streak.
Yeah.
They're little teeny tiny things. I mean, something the size of a telephone creates what's called a bolide, meaning it's bright enough to be seen in daylight.
Which is what this one was.
This one was, but this one was not the size of a telephone. This one apparently was the size of a Greyhound bus.
Yeah, this was a biggie.
And weighed between 7 and 10,000 tons. 7,000 to 10,000 tons. Now, I heard you talking in the earlier hour with...
Dan Durda.
Exactly. And you asked him an interesting question, which, again, is revelatory for the physics of what we're talking about here. You said, well, this would have caused a lot of damage if it hit the ground, right? And his answer was slightly ambiguous, because when you know your subject so well, you always forget to cover all the things for people that don't know anything. What he meant to say in answer to your question is, if this thing had hit the ground, there would have probably been less damage. The reason is the impact would have been buried in the ground. The energy of the impact would have been underground and shielded. That's why ground bursts, thinking nuclear war now, switching gears, are less desirable for producing terrible effects on the enemy than what we call air bursts.
I see. Okay.
If this thing, which it did, burst in air, the estimates now that I've seen, and he gave you some of the numbers, up to 500,000 tons of TNT equivalent.
Like Tunguska.
Well, Tunguska was a little bigger. It was on the order of 2 or 3 megatons, but it wasn't that much bigger. It was maybe 5 or 6 times bigger, but when we get to that scale, like, who's counting?
What? Well, if they go down into that lake where we saw that big hole where it hit,
the ice.
What do you think they will find?
They'll find a chunk of something probably buried in the sediments, because by the time it got to the lower atmosphere, it was probably falling under normal atmospheric, the terminal velocity in the lower atmosphere for something that's like a piece of rock would be several hundred miles an hour. So it should have survived. There will be pieces they can extract for composition.
It won't be as big as that bus when it came in.
No.
Okay.
This was a fragment that came off in the explosion.
Okay.
See, what happens is you've got this thing sailing along, having a great day in outer space. Sun is shining. There's this beautiful planet coming up, on the port bow, and suddenly it realizes, wait a minute, that planet's not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it slams into the atmosphere at, this was 40,000 plus miles per hour.
What caused that shock wave that shattered glass, injured people?
Well, what happens is this stony object, we presume it's a rocky asteroid because it burst in the air.
Mm-hmm.
When it hits the atmosphere, the pressures pile up in seconds. The thing is heated to super incandescence. That's what caused all the light and the streaming tail of material. And then the actual pressure from slamming into the atmosphere is like slamming into concrete. The air is no longer light and fluffy and pleasant. It becomes almost like a solid object. And so the pressures on the front side exceed the tensile strength of the rock of the meteor, which is the name of the object in the sky, itself, and it collapses. It internally collapses because of this huge overpressure on its front side, the side that's entering the atmosphere. That collapse is what converts the kinetic energy of its motion into essentially an explosion. And so you have the equivalent of a nuclear weapon going off. In this case, the numbers are between 12 and 25 miles. If it had penetrated lower before it exploded,
oh my gosh,
it would have been the equivalent of detonating several Hiroshima-sized bombs directly over this little Russian town, and you would have had casualties in the tens of thousands.
Oh my gosh.
They were fortunate that all they got was the shock wave. Now, remember how thin the atmosphere is at 12 to 25 miles
Well,
up.
and let me ask you this. At any point, did the Russians think they were under attack by someone?
Probably not, because a single object, if you're going to have a war, it's going to be a whole bunch of missiles. So I'm sure that we are light years past it being mistaken for any kind of a, not that bizarre Russian politician, notwithstanding, who claimed this was a weapons test by the United States. There's always an outlier. You always got some people that don't quite get the meaning. But in this case, no, there would be zero possibility they would think it was some kind of a, offensive effort in terms of us, because if war is going to start between major nations with nuclear weapons, it's going to be a flotilla of weapons. It's going to be a salvo of missiles, not just one. And it was also coming from a very strange direction. It was coming, I think, from the southeast, if I'm not mistaken. And to the southeast of Russia, there's China, there's Japan, there's Korea. I don't think they thought that Kim Jong-il, suddenly had turned his nuclear weapons around and was doing a shot at the Soviet Union.
No, I don't think he'd do that. Now, how ironic is it that we get this meteorite, and then the asteroid coming in a day later?
Okay.
I think this might have been a piece of that asteroid.
No. And remember last night you and I were twittering back and forth?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the same thing. When we got the orbit today, which is from a whole bunch of observatories and ground stations and analysis of the trajectory and all that, the two objects are on totally different trajectories.
It's just ironic.
Well,
you can't say coincidence.
Now, you and I, in front of the Coast audience, have to sit down and take a deep breath, and I'm going to lead you into the weeds.
Here we go.
Into a very bizarre set of facts.
Crocodiles live in weeds sometimes.
Yep. What are the odds? You just raised the question. What are the odds that a few hours apart on the same day, George, two major historic asteroidal-type objects will interact with the Earth, both of which are unique?
I would say astronomical.
Astronomical. Now, remember, this is the largest airburst over Earth, as far as we know, since Tunguska. which is over 100 years ago. And it occurred on the same day that the largest asteroid ever recorded encounters the Earth only 17,200 miles away a few hours later, and then disappears back into deep interplanetary space. What are the odds that two incredibly improbable events are going to occur on the same day with hours of each other? Neither one by itself would have been ignored, and together they just make you shake your head.
Astronomical.
Astronomical. So now we have to go to part two of the question.
Astronomical. Oh, right.
If this wasn't an incredible astronomical coincidence, is it in fact something else?
And what could that something else be?
Did someone do this?
Send it our way?
Send it our way. And they do it twice. Once as a reminder of how dangerous these things can be, and the other as a real reminder how dangerous these things can be because it hit us. And by the grace of God, I mean the trajectory of this second object, the so-called meteor over Russia, was essentially tangential to the Earth's atmosphere and the Earth's horizon.
Well, and as I asked Dan Derter earlier, he really didn't have an answer for me, but I posed this to you. Tunguska, 1908, over Siberia. This one over Siberia, Ural Mountains area. But, you know, what are the odds of that happening?
Well, that's another thing, because, yeah, Russia's big and it spans several time zones, but this is damn close to where Tunguska occurs.
It's weird.
Well, because it's weird because my scenario, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of people standing up and yelling at the radio and pitching it out their apartment windows, right? Hoagland says this may not be astronomical coincidence at all.
That it was planned.
Yeah. Now, let me give you two pieces of data that tell me.
You're on your own on this theory, Richard.
They tell me that at least one of these events was planned. Our good old friend DA-14, which we talked about the other night,
the
one that came by a few hours ago, went inside the geosynchronous ring of satellites, which
sure did.
22,300.
That means closer than satellites.
Closer by 5,000 miles.
That's right.
And remember, its orbit was vertical to the axis of the Earth. That literally, if you were riding on the asteroid, you were riding on 2012 DA-14 this morning and this afternoon, you would have literally seen the South Pole coming up as the Earth got closer and closer and closer. Then you would have seen the Earth rotating slowly in front of you to where you were seeing Australia on your right and Asia on your left, and the middle of the the western part of the Pacific directly underneath you. Then you would have seen more and more of the northern hemisphere and more of Europe as you exited from near the Earth system, basically around the North Pole. So this thing came in from the South Pole, crossed the equator and the ring of geosynchronous satellites at 17,200 miles out, 5,000 miles inside the ring of satellites, like threading the needle. That's a place you can place an object and have it not do any damage. But it sure makes people pay attention, doesn't it?
It sure does.
And then, as punctuation, ping. So another object completely unrelated comes out of nowhere, the size of a Greyhound bus, and were it not for the grace of God and His trajectory, it could have killed 100,000 people in this little town in Russia, because it exploded between 12 and 25 miles overhead with an explosive force equivalent to several Nagasaki or Hiroshima type bombs.
Why, with an object that big, size of a bus, why didn't anybody see it before it came through?
Because it's so tiny against the dark and against the object, and if it's black, and most of these little objects appear to be black because of carbon, they are reflecting between 5 and 2% of the light. And unless you're looking in exactly the right place and taking time exposures, as the group in Spain has been doing, looking for these small objects, you're just not going to see something like this. I mean, we could have a bunch of these passing us, every few weeks, and no one would know,
right?
Because we don't have. And unless unless you're looking in exactly the right place and taking time exposures, as the group in Spain has been doing, looking for these small objects, you're just not going to see something like this. I mean, we could have a bunch of these passing us, every few weeks, and no one would know,
right?
Because we don't have the statistics down, because the money is not there to do the synoptic surveys, because nobody thinks it's a problem. Well, I mean, if you look at the results, the last time we had something like this happen was over 100 years ago, right?
That's right.
So it's not a big problem. The odds are that something like DA14 will come closest to us once every 40 years. Remember, it's not an impact,
well, if
1,000 miles out.
If 14 had hit us, what would happen?
Oh, if 14 had hit us, it would have been like Tunguska. It would have been several megatons, depending upon, again, whether it's an iron or it's made of rock.
Right.
It would have either buried itself in the ground, in which case you would have had a ground burst, like the event that created the meteor crater in Arizona, the Winslow crater.
That's a pretty good-sized crater.
It's almost a mile across.
Yeah.
It's 600 feet deep. I've been to it several times. It's 50,000 years old. It's still spectacular, but it would have, if DA14 had been like that and had buried itself in the ground and then exploded because of the kinetic energy conversion, it would have killed a lot of people, but nowhere near as many as an airburst. Remember, airburst, the shock wave goes from where it's bursting to the horizon. And in the case of the Russian meteor, it was a 12 to 25 miles up, and the shock wave still injured 1,000 people from broken glass. And I've actually seen photographs. It's amazing what the internet is now able to do. Remember when the Soviet Union was this big, dark secret, and we only had these kind of fuzzy black and white images coming out of Russia?
Yeah.
Now you've got color video from dash cams.
Yeah, and it looked like suburbia.
And it looks like, it looked like the U.S., like people driving to work on a freeway here. But what's interesting is the close-ups of the factory, which had its brick walls actually
just
smashed,
shattered out,
by the shockwave. Can you imagine if that thing had exploded twice as close to the ground?
Oh, they would have been gone.
You would, well, no, there would have been a lot more casualties,
yes,
a lot more damage.
Yes.
It would have been like a war, like the Blitz, like London, like Dresden, whatever. But it wouldn't have destroyed everybody, but they basically missed the bullet by inches. And it happened on the same day, George, as the DA-14 flyby.
That is peculiar.
How much time we got to the end of this block?
We've got about a minute or so, but let me ask you, the rock from the meteor, 4.5 billion years old as our solar system?
Well, there's no way to know.
Because it could have come from outside of the solar system, right?
Well, probably not, because the trajectory and the velocity were too low. This is something that was in orbit around the sun. If someone did this, if this was a setup to make governments on Earth realize how vulnerable we are, remember, we've been dealing statistically up until now with the idea that we're in a shooting gallery. Cosmically speaking, statistically, every once in a while, something like this will come by. It will or will not impact, and you can actually do a calculation for how often that might take place and what the damage would be from a certain size object, right?
Exactly.
If we change that equation and we introduce the idea that somebody is actually sending these things as messages, as warnings, as brinkmanship, as look what we can do and you guys are defenseless, it totally changes the game. Before we end this segment, I want people to think across the break to these two numbers I'm going to give you. When I found these numbers, which was several days ago...
You're going to have to do it when we come back, Richard, but we will. We'll get you in a second on Coast to Coast AM. Talking with Richard Hoagland, we'll get your reaction to this meteorite when we come back. Hey, time for our shout-out. Those of you supporting and listening to Coast on our more than 560 radio stations across North America, hello, thank you. Coast Insiders, and you can be one, less than 15 cents a day. XM Talk Channel 168. And then how about the various chat rooms and groups? Into Infinity. Fantastic Forum 2, to use the new title.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Before we take calls, what did you want to talk about here?
Well, and I want to hold off on the calls for a couple more minutes because I have something else I want to bring up.
All right. And I do have to ask you about that ship.
That's the one thing I want to bring up.
Oh, okay, good. Good timing.
I'm doing some work on that, and again, statistically, what has happened to the Triumph, the ship that Robin and I and several hundred of our best friends went to the Yucatan and came back on, is statistically impossible. So I want to get into that and give you some insights into what may really have been going on, which is incredibly relevant for a whole bunch of other things in our society and culture and civilization in terms of actually applying some of this knowledge to real-world problems. But back to the meteor. So we're looking at these two events that are each incredibly statistically unlikely, and they both happen on the same day.
Bizarre.
And they both reinforce each other. In other words, what have you been talking about with me and a bunch of other experts on Coast for the last couple of weeks? The impending flyby of DA-14, and what would happen if it hit, right?
Right.
So what do we have happen on the same day, a few hours before the close flyby of this object we're all talking about? We have a smaller object, which does hit.
Which does something we didn't even anticipate.
Because you couldn't have seen it in the dark. It's smaller, and it causes the most damage of any meteor impact that I can remember. And I looked at the literature today, trying to find, examples of where something this big did this much damage and affected this many people, and I haven't found it. And we now know, based on analysis, that it's the biggest event that we think has happened since Tunguska, which was 100-plus years ago, in 1908.
That's right.
And again, both of these things happen on the same day. So Hoagland says, okay, forget statistics, forget coincidence, somebody's doing this. Remember the model I've been laying out on Coast for the last several years, George, that we are in the middle of an undeclared secret space war between folks here and somebody out there. Not necessarily aliens. In fact, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're family. And I think that we ought to have an evening where you and Joseph Farrell and I and maybe Rick Dolan have a discussion as to about Dolan's breakaway civilization and who might, in fact, have it in their interest to do this and try to keep us down on the farm.
At bay, sure.
To keep us basically confined to Earth so we don't mess up whatever they're doing out there. And how do you do that? You would basically threaten folks down here with terrible retribution should they stray from the playpen.
So you think this was a message?
Well, I don't think I can prove it.
How?
Now, science ultimately is based, as Sir Arthur Eddington once said, on numbers. The only way you have a science is if you have numbers. As soon as I got enough data on DA-14 to look at the numbers, I realized this could not have been a happy coincidence that this thing comes by so close but so safely. I mean, it threaded the needle between the satellites and the ground and gets close enough to scare the bejesus out of everybody, but far enough away to do zero damage on anything, right? That's kind of cute. That's kind of interesting. It enters on a polar trajectory. As it's coming in from the southern hemisphere, goes all the way up, crosses into the northern hemisphere, and the radar guys at JPL tonight at Gulfstone are pinging away madly, getting incredible close-up radar images of this thing and its trajectory and what the surface looks like, and they're going to see features on this down to about 4 meters, according to the best data I have, on an object which is, 50 meters across.
Richard, hold on for a second. We've got a caller from Russia on the line, as a matter of fact.
Oh, excellent.
Bob is with us. Hi, Bob. Thanks for calling in.
Well, hello. I heard your comments on the meteor strike yesterday. I'm an American citizen living in Chelyabinsk, Russia, and I live on the south edge of town, and I thought I'd fill you in on some events that are not being reported.
Go ahead.
Well, there were actually 2 nuclear-type flashes which occurred at our location on the south edge of town. And further south from us, there is a missile battery. And going directly over our place, from the south, going to the northeast, were 2 super big contrails, not very high, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 feet above ground level. And then that I've noticed that after the flash, there were two flashes. They were approximately 1 minute 40 seconds apart.
Wow.
And then it took there was two explosions, big bangs, biggest I've ever heard.
And they've only reported one, so that's
they've
interesting.
only reported one, and these bangs were about 1 minute 10 seconds apart. So using the old lightning formula of 5 seconds per mile, we could sort of tell where they were exploding from. But the contrails from the missile battery were sort of exciting. There was rumors that there was a shoot down of something that they didn't know what it was, a UFO. But I don't know if that's respecting that or not.
Did you get any pictures out of it, Bob, or was it too fast there for you?
No, I didn't get pictures. We've got a ton of them here in Russia.
Where were you? Were you in your house, in your car?
We live on a 5th floor apartment, and the windows are on the west and on the east. So we had a pretty good view of what was happening. My wife and I both commented as the sun was just coming up when this happened. And the word here in Russia is that they didn't see it coming with the naked eye, coming in the dark, because the sun was just coming up. And we commented, it was the brightest sunrise we have ever seen.
Oh, my God.
Anytime. It was so bright that you could not look at the sun.
How loud were the explosions?
Extreme. I've been in the military and heard some big ones, and these were the two biggest that I ever heard.
At what point did you feel the concussion?
Oh, yeah, we had the concussion. It blew out two of our windows on the east side.
Wow.
How many people live in that little town?
This is not a little town. I wanted to comment on that, too. This is about 1,300,000.
Oh, my God.
No, that's not little at all.
It's a large town, and I'm familiar with the zinc plant that was hit. And I am really surprised that zinc plant was destroyed to the extent it was. But they say it was because of the concussion causing the roof to implode.
Well, it also seems to be made of brick, and of course, brick and mortar are not the biggest materials. And when we have earthquakes in San Francisco, those are the first buildings that collapse.
Well, then these are old buildings, too.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, this one is probably
Bob, what is
World War II.
What is your theory, Bob? What do you think? Are you saying that you think these might have been missiles or indeed the meteorite?
No, my theory is that there was a possible shoot down
of something.
Of something, because the missiles that they have at this missile site are the S-400s, and they are the most advanced missile there is. They supposedly can track 100 objects at a time and shoot down any 12 of them. So it must be a multiple warhead type missile.
Well, you can't shoot down a meteor. It's going too fast.
Well, it's going too fast. But we don't know if the missiles hit anything or if they just fired them at it as it went by or not. But the meteor was coming from the east, right out of the sun.
What do you think, Richard?
Well, remember during the first Iraq War, George Bush's, skirmish with Hussein, when Israel was under attack by the Scuds, and we would use our Patriot missile batteries to try to shoot down the warhead.
Right.
A lot of damage was done on the ground by the pieces of the Patriots falling out of the sky.
That's right.
It's possible, if Bob's report is accurate, and it sounds pretty accurate, that they saw something on radar, they tried to shoot it down, and the side effects of the explosion of that warhead may have contributed to the ground damage because it detonated very low.
Well, that's possible, too. You remember the movie Independence Day when they blew up those huge UFOs? Pieces were scattered everywhere as they were coming down. So, Bob, today, what's the talk? Are some folks out there actually saying they may have tried to shoot down a UFO?
We can't get any definite facts on this. We had one military report to a friend of ours who said, Max, it's time to take your iodine pills. Of course, all of us are prepared for that, and we have iodine pills for the radiation. But the two missiles exploding on hitting something or just plain exploding, they could have, after they missed, been detonated intentionally. But that would explain a long-term rain down of parts and pieces.
Oh, so you did have that?
Oh, a lot of it.
Now, Richard, you don't get that with a meteorite, do you?
Not at all. Well, you get little bits of stone, but you don't get
not trails.
Have you collected any of this junk?
No, I live too far away from it, and
do you know anybody who is collecting it?
No, I don't. But I know they're trying to sell it. Any rock that is black, they're trying to sell as a meteorite.
I bet. Bob, what got you to move to Russia?
I married a Russian woman.
Oh, okay. That explains it.
I've been over here about 10 years, so we're kind of familiar with the area. But the missile rain down might explain why there was so much debris coming down, and it was falling, and I've heard one video that was evidently very close to where it was coming down, and it just sounded like rain coming down.
That is
constant hits. And the explosions were not exactly like they reported. There was 2 huge explosions, and then a lot of little ones.
Will you get little explosions like that, Richard?
No, you would not.
That is weird.
Because what happens is when the shock wave collapses the stony object and it implodes, you basically get a detonation, and then all these pieces are traveling subsonic, and they will not create any subsequent events. They would just fall, like as he just said, like rain, but they would not explode like mini explosions afterwards. This sounds like it's something much more interesting.
This adds a totally new twist.
And doesn't it reinforce the model I was discussing?
Well, it makes it even more palatable, doesn't it? Bob, thank you out there in Russia.
Yes, Bob. Please stay in touch.
Appreciate that. Richard, as the clock ticks, I have to ask you about this ship. You were on this ship. It was a disaster for a lot of people.
George, before we switch to the ship, let me give you these 2 numbers.
You've got to go fast. We're running out of time here.
That DA-14 was not natural. When I say not natural, you have to understand what I mean. When you have a snowstorm, George, when you used to live, in St. Louis, you pick up snow.
Yeah.
The snow is natural, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You pour it into a ball, and then you throw it at someone.
All right.
Maybe your program manager.
It's not natural at that point.
It's exactly. So, in our model, this object, this DA-14, is natural. It is an asteroid. It is a chunk of rock. But it was vectored by intelligent design by somebody on a specific trajectory. Like I was proposing a few minutes ago for the object that hit Russia, which is now looking even more bizarre.
It sure is.
And we need more data. We need pieces. We need people to call in or text in or do whatever they can do, Skype from Russia, and tell us what these pieces look like that they're picking up. Because if it's pieces of hardware and they did hit this thing, whatever it was, then there was a shoot down of an actual craft of some kind.
What an amazing story. I mean, I've got to ask you this very quickly.
Yep.
If the Russians launched 1 or 2 missiles, 1 or 2, they obviously had to launch it at something.
Yep.
It wasn't a test, was it?
Which means their early warning radars picked this thing up, and they attempted, because they thought it was aimed to take out this city. That's why they would launch.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the numbers. DA-14 came in on a trajectory, George, that takes exactly 33 hours to cross the Earth-Moon system.
There you are with that number again.
And its closest approach?
33 degrees?
19.5 hours Greenwich Mean Time.
You and those numbers.
Well, but the numbers are the numbers. You can't fake the numbers. As soon as I saw these attached to the trajectory, like I saw them attached to Elenine's trajectory, that's how I knew somebody intelligently had finagled with the trajectory for a reason, for a purpose, for a goal. Remember FDR's statement, in politics, there's no such thing as coincidence.
No, well, that's my life too. Now, Mr. Master of the Universe, can I ask you about the ship?
Yep, we can go to the ship.
You were on the ship with Robin. You were floating around the Yucatan. You were on the same ship, the Triumph, that Carnival Cruise Line that had this horrible problem. Yep. People praised the crew today. They thought they worked marvelously, but the ship was a disaster. What happened? Did you see any of that when you were there?
No, but I saw what may have led to it. And I obviously don't have a lot of time, so let me go through quickly. I'm going to be posting on Enterprise, enterprisemission.com, our analysis of what happened to the Triumph, which I think began the morning of December 19th when we docked at Progresso. I am measuring with the Accutron technology the hyperdimensional torsion field background, right? When that ship docked, the most extraordinary readings were recorded. I'm looking at them right now on my computer screen. Those signals, that amplification of the background field, came, I believe, from the 4-mile-long dock that Mexico has built sticking out into the Gulf of Mexico from Yucatan as one of its major northern ports. It's got the longest pier in the world, practically, 4 miles. You can see it by satellite. I'm recording torsion field amplifications caused by the waves hitting this concrete structure, rhythmically causing it to vibrate every few seconds, almost like a clock. Ping, ping, ping.
So you're saying the ship was damaged?
And then we docked, and the waves went off scale. Remember how torsion field waves interact with rotating machinery?
Mm-hmm.
They cause changes. The Accutron went from 360 hertz to almost 1,000 hertz in the span of a few seconds.
That's a big jump.
And kept doing these wild excursions for over an hour until I had to close up the laptop to get on the buses to go to Chichen Itza.
Well, aren't you glad you weren't on that ship, Richard? My, oh, my, oh, my. I'm glad you're okay now. Richard C. Hoagland, we're going to come back in just a moment. Open lines on Coast to Coast AM. Well, how'd you like to be in a cruise ship that breaks down in the middle of nowhere? What a nightmare for those people. Oh, well, back in a moment with more of your calls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. What a fast night. More open line calls. We're going to go back to Danny in Macon, Georgia. Hey, Danny, I didn't want the break to get you, so let's start over.
All right, no problem, George. Right before the break, I was discussing how you and Richard had discussed the connection between what's happened in Russia over the past 48 hours with the Tunguska incident in 1908, and how it correlated with the fact that these events are happening over Russia. And Richard, earlier in the hours, had spoken about how he didn't believe there was any kind of aggressive response from Russia, or how he didn't feel they necessarily would respond to a situation like this. But in any situation, a country like Russia or ourselves, America, would be able to very readily understand the cosmic event that's coming towards us with these meteorites. And as of the past 36 to 78 hours, Russia has put a very aggressive stance against the United States, including the surrounding of Guam, the island of Guam, in the past couple of days. They had a whole series of Tu-95 aircraft.
Why do you think they're doing this?
Well, I read this from foreign correspondents on Drudge, who were also affiliated through a New York source, that there was a series of Russian jets flying with cruise missiles tipped with nuclear missiles, flying around Guam in the past 48 hours.
Well, no, I know that they are doing that, but the question is, why are they doing it?
Well, George, you're exactly correct. That's what I want to know. I want to know if there's any connection between why they've been doing this over the past couple of days. Very well knowing with the technology that the Russians have, knowing that a meteorite is coming towards our atmosphere, and also doing this aggressive posturing towards United States territory, such as Guam. I feel like this event that's happened over the atmosphere of Russia twice now in history, as we know, including Tunguska and, even farther beyond that.
Sure.
If this posturing that they're doing around Guam doesn't have anything to do with that, I find it hard to believe. They surrounded U.S. territory with nuclear-tipped missiles, nuclear-tipped cruise missiles, and we're just avoiding that. And up till this point, as far as I know, as far as the official State Department releases have said, the Russian foreign minister has not gotten back to them.
No, he won't call Kerry.
Right, exactly.
He refuses.
He won't call Kerry. And I'm not a big fan of John Kerry, but I feel like he is a very good candidate for the job, and there's no reason why the Russians should not have contacted him back at this point, letting him know what the reason for that posturing was, which they haven't done. And I can't seem to fathom how that has nothing to do with what's going on with these meteoric explosions in the atmosphere.
So what's your theory of the meteors, then?
Well,
if they're just coming from space, the Russians don't have anything to do with that. So I assume you think there's something else going on.
Absolutely, George. I kind of side with Richard on this, which is that it's very obvious that the Russians knew far before this, with weeks, maybe even a month before, that this meteoric event was going to happen regardless. It was coming, and they knew that. And to not spread it, to not push it into the media, to not let the public know what's going on, and at the same time do this aggressive posturing against U.S. territory, such as Guam, just bringing in nuclear-tipped or nuclear-armed jets.
Okay, well, my take on this is there's no question. Russia likes to flex its muscles every once in a while, and it's probably doing that now. The caller Bob from Russia contends that they shot down perhaps a UFO. Who knows? So there might be a correlation between all of this. You never know. You might be pretty perceptive, Danny. Let's take a couple more calls here. We go next to Robert in Wilmington, Delaware. Welcome to the show. Hey, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought your guest last night, Michael, that could have perhaps be the most disturbing Coast program I've ever heard.
It really was. He seemed very compelling, didn't he?
Exactly, but he was extremely intelligent and very well spoken.
Yes.
And I wish I'd thought to call in last night and ask. I wonder if he seems to have survived this entire ordeal, and it almost makes me wonder, and I'm wondering what you think, whether he may have perhaps survived this whole ordeal, whether maybe he was one of these people where they're trying to split the personality and possibly program them to be an assassin, and maybe for some reason he's gotten through this.
Well, he contends that they're still after him, that they're still chasing him around, and that he's not out of the woods yet. So who knows? But it was a very compelling interview last night. Buck is in Moundsville, West Virginia. Hey, Buck, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, George, how's it going?
Good. All is well.
Okay, two things, man. I'm listening to the CC radio, too.
Okay, great.
Which I got for Christmas, and the Coast Insider for Christmas.
Well, who got you those for Christmas?
My assistant.
Well,
remember?
Perfect. That's right.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But you know what? I listened to two things on the local media. They were talking to the EMS directors, and they said, well, they're prepared for snow and floods and things of that nature. But when it comes to, meteorites or meteor disasters, they're not in any way prepared. And I'm wondering, is there any reason why the government...
So follow it under calendar at coasttocoastam.com. Got my very first speech out in the New Jersey area on March 16th. So make sure you're part of that, too. I'm looking forward to that. Haven't been in that region in a very long time, but that's my first speech out that way and first event. So go on out there. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Rick in Portland, Oregon, Wild Card Line. Welcome to the program. Hi, Rick.
Hey there, buddy.
Hey.
So, listen, I know you guys are working hard to censor some things out there at the show, I can tell. But I just wanted to mention to y'all that last week you guys had some people called in, said how they had broken into the man's house and put the cameras in the man's house and sold the material. And I was just here to tell you that I'm the guy they did that with. They broke into my house. They ran me out of two neighborhoods first. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, so I lived in two places. They ran me out of two neighborhoods because they found out I was using drugs in the house, okay? And it's my weakness. I was looking out the windows all the time, all paranoid. And so these people decided I shouldn't live in their neighborhood. So they ran me out of one. I took a loss on the house. I was ashamed. I left. Turns out the guy who was arranging all this harassment worked at Bell South, so he knew where I moved to. So then he got that next neighborhood to run me out of that neighborhood. When I got to the third neighborhood, I bought a house on the lake with my own dock, and all of a sudden I got these neighbors coming after me, and I took a stand against them. And the guy who was trying to harass me and run me out, he ended up getting run out. And so they went nuclear, broke into my house, filmed me, did everything they did. And so now we have the situation.
Well, did you sue them? I mean, that was an illegal entry.
Well, it was their neighborhood. These guys were all working out. They had cheese made to my house when I left. They didn't have to break in. They had cheese made.
Now they said that you earned on this video $200 million, and I thought that was preposterous.
Well, my understanding is it's a lot more than that. I haven't gotten a penny of it yet, but I want to tell the American people that their lives have already been impacted by the show because the Bush administration, although it wouldn't have the biggest audience, they listened to what I was saying. And during the Iraq War, the surge, the real surge, was the surge of us hiring Sunni people up in the Anbar province because that's where we're getting a lot of terrorist attacks because those Sunnis were displaced when we removed Saddam. And so my plan...
Hold on for a second. Who got all the money?
No, it's still in the accounts. It's still piling up.
I mean, but why can't... Who's got control of it?
Well, they have control of it,
Oh, see, when the guy called me, he said you had control of it. So it's kind of conflicting. So I don't know what's going on. But I have a feeling that's going to be a story that may live forever. Forever. But Rick, out there in Portland, Oregon, where you've now moved to, obviously, take care, whatever you're doing. Let's move on to JC in San Diego. Is it that JC?
Hi, George.
Nope, it's the other JC. Hi.
Yeah, how are you, George?
Good.
Look, I just first of all, I want to just thank you for bringing everyone out here. The cornucopia of just phenomenal. I know it's entertainment, but just so much knowledge. I don't know of anyone else that I've ever listened to in radio, and I've been listening to talk radio forever. That just fills my brain and stimulates me, and I just as so many of your listeners. But listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to make a comment about the guests you had on last night with the Invisible Crime Show.
Sure, Roger Tulsis and Michael.
Right, I know there was two. I couldn't remember their names, but thank you. And I just, I was listening to the show, and I thought to myself, you know how your guests were saying that a lot of people don't even realize this is happening to them over time, and a lot of the particulars and specifics that were being conveyed by your guest last night were starting to click for me in my own situation. And I guess the bottom line for me is I've been listening for a while, and I used to listen to Art Bell years and years ago also.
Thanks.
And as I've been listening, and the Spy Chips shows and this and that, these very informative shows are really, I don't know, how the rest of the audience feels, obviously, but what my bottom line is do you think, George, in your vast array of knowledge and exposure and guests that you've had, do you actually feel that the common citizen such as you or I really has any hopeful, any hope towards the future of any privacy or anything else? Because it just seems like it's getting
It's just getting
well, you know what? That's a great question, JC, and here's a shortened version of that answer. I think we do. I think eventually so many people who, right now we don't have enough, but eventually so many people will see the light, see what you see what I see, and so many listeners to this program see, that eventually they're going to say enough is enough. And I'm not going to say we'll have an Arab Spring in this country, but people will start doing what they have to do to put their foot down. And I think that we do have a future, and we're going to win in the long run. It's going to be bumpy along the way. It's not going to be easy, but we will get there. That's my take. And you know what? As long as I can continue on the airwaves and tell people this, I shall. Skip is in Burbank, California. It's your turn. Hey, Skip, go ahead.
Hi, good to talk to
You
you.
too. Thanks for holding.
In regards to the anomaly that happened, okay, I was leaving at Doggy Camp, which is in Burbank, heading towards Century City, and to my mirror in the back, there were some flashes of light, and I thought, okay, I thought nothing of it, and then later on, this thing happened in Russia.
So it was pretty close to the same time?
Well, yeah, yes. It's fast, and traveling that fast at the speed, I would believe it would be there around that time. There's no conspiracy.
Good point.
And there, there's the Kuiper Belt, which is what runs between Mercury and Venus, an old busted up planet that probably never, they're just asteroids in a big circle, just flying around. They bump into each other sometimes. Because when I watched the Perseid meteor showers, they were supposed to come out of the east, and it looked like they were coming from all directions.
They were all over the place, yeah. They really were, and it was gorgeous. But it's interesting, Skip, that you may have seen the beginning of that meteorite that popped over Russia.
Right, and also just today also there were some, over San Francisco, there was a couple of anomalies that happened today again.
Yes, I think we're in some kind of a flap right now. There's some kind of a pattern, and a couple people have sent me emails that these things are going in clusters, that they don't come by themselves, so that's very possible. They're all aimed this way. Skip, thanks. Let's go to Kathleen in Las Vegas. Welcome to the program. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. Do you think maybe that what was it, asteroid didn't hit the Earth because the poles keep shifting? Last I heard, the South Pole would go up off the coast of California, and then it would drift back.
Well, the poles are shifting, but I don't think that has anything to do with the asteroid missing us. We just kind of dodged it. We lucked
But
out.
wouldn't that change the magnetic thing? And I don't know anything about electronics.
I don't think it would be enough to do anything. Now, if an asteroid was iron,
yeah,
maybe a little bit, but if it was just a rock, probably not.
Well, if you have Nishio Kaku, ask him, okay?
Well, you got a deal.
Thank you, bye.
All right, Kathleen. Let's go to Cincinnati. Nelson's with us. Hey, Nelson, welcome to the program.
Hi. Thanks for having me, and I'm going to give you some information that is the most important information so far on planet Earth.
All right. I can't wait to hear it. Go ahead.
Okay, here it goes. The computers that we are starting to develop are becoming self-replicating, and these are dependent on man is of a water-based life form, and our biocomputer depends on water flow of ions through membranes. Now, the computers we have generated depend on they cannot really last very long. Eventually, they will become corroded by our water and sodium based system in our biosphere. So, rather than being evil, they are just the same as us. They are instinctually trying to survive, and what will eventually happen same thing that happened on Mars, is they will cause the atmosphere to leave the planet. They'll explode it off the planet, which they're planning on doing now. Now, the Earth people who have been part of this for the last 1,500 years, with the killing off of the whales and the elephants, which are these intelligent species which are maintaining what we have of our biosphere right now. Now, those come from what are known as the destructive forces that are causing the wars. They want to keep the wars going because that influences us to keep manufacturing these biocomputers and keep them running to the point where they can actually operate themselves and do not need humans.
How close are they to doing that, Nelson? What do you think?
Okay, there will be a chance in 2022 for us to start reversing the whole process, and we can have cars and all our energy from a steam-based, just a way of using water.
No, well, why did you pick that year?
Well, there's 2022 and there's also 2088. These are opportunities, but we probably won't have those.
Oh, I know, but how do you know that? Did you just pick it out of the air, or what?
Okay, I just got a book written by a friend of mine back in the 70s. His name is John C. Lilly. He was the man who ran the dolphin experiments, and he was in a plane when the captain said, for you who have not seen the comet Kohoutek, if you look out the window,
there it goes.
You'll see this. And John had already been in an advanced state of awareness, and he was able to aim his internal radar, and suddenly he began to receive this message: we will now make a demonstration of our power over the solid-state control systems upon planet Earth. In 30 seconds, we will shut off all electronic equipment in the Los Angeles airport. Your airplane will be unable to land there, and will have to be shut into another airport. Suddenly, the pilot announced on the loudspeaker, "We will be unable to land at Los Angeles airport."
Whoa!
Everything's been shut down. Now,
did this really happen?
This actually happened during Comet Kohoutek. Now, those agents which are working for those forces are known as the generators of poison, okay, or the grabbers of power, or the gang of psychos. All those stand for the GOP.
Now, the gang of psychos, are they human?
The gang of psychos are those who are trying to destroy America now. They worked to as I said, they wanted to collapse the economy of America so they could get rid of our government.
Well, they're doing a good job
with
it.
The government are on talk radio, or all the AM talk radio shows which are fomenting this, who cause the mass shootings. Each one of them.
Hold on now. You're getting a little too bizarre on me, and that's when it's time to move on. Okay? I'm on AM talk radio, mostly. I've got some FMs, of course. We don't do that. We don't ferment that. We don't talk about hate. So you're wrong. You're wrong. Oh, well. Fontana, California. Alma's turn on Coast to Coast. Alma, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, George. I'm very happy to talk to you. I listen to you every night.
Well, thank you.
I'm very freaked out about what I saw tonight in the sky.
What did you see?
Oh, it was around 8:30 at night.
Okay.
And I was coming home from an errand, and I saw this big red, orange sort of ball of fire in the sky. And I was thinking, I didn't think that we would be able to see the asteroid like visible to the naked eye. I just was very shocked.
No, it wasn't
to see
that.
The size of it.
Must have been something else. Was it zooming by, or was it stationary?
No, it wasn't going very fast, but it was definitely traveling across the sky.
Okay.
Then I got home